Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1. I was expecting to make 2 videos today, but it looks like it's going to become 3 as we have our first images of the new Alfa Romeo car for the 2020 season. So I guess we should have expected this as Alfa did the exact same thing last year, launched their car in a Valentine's themed livery. I didn't really like the one last year, but this one I'm a massive advocate of. It's very much like a snakeskin style of livery. It looks really, really nice. It's kind of a shame they won't be running with it in the season. It's just really don't think it's a testing livery. I think it's just a shakedown one, and we'll see the final livery on, I believe, the 19th of February when they properly launch the car. Now, the only downside of this is it does make certain features very, very difficult to see, but having a look at the images and just comparing it to last year's car, I can see there's been a few small innovations here and there, and let's get straight into those. Of course, if this is your first time visiting the channel, have a look in the description. I've left links to all the other videos I've done on the other 2020 cars released so far, so have a look through those, and yeah, just enjoy really. The support has been fantastic on those videos so far, and yeah, really, really, really nice to see, so thank you guys for that. Now, let's get into the important stuff. So, looking at the front then, and looking at that front nose cone to start with now, obviously we saw Alfa bring in this almost nostril design, I believe it was last year for the first time. Now, they've reprofiled it slightly at the front of the nose cone, so the top two kind of holes haven't changed too much. It's more the one in the middle that's kind of been changed, more of an oval design to kind of like a semicircle, I guess you could say. And I imagine that's just to get better flow into the S duct. Now, I've explained the S duct in a lot of these other videos, and I'll explain it again because it is quite an important and relatively new technical innovation, relatively speaking. It's been around for about a decade or two now. But basically, it's a S-shaped duct through the nose cone of the car, and in fact, it's really, really clear to see where the exit duct is here. Just above the, I think it's Morelli logo, you can see there's a little hole, and it's kind of been guided out as well by these two almost grooves that have been cut into the front nose structure of the car. So what that does then is it basically takes air from underneath the car, that would go underneath the car, and it spits it out up basically where the driver sat, and it allows nice flow, nice clear flow and smooth flow towards the rear of the car. Looking at the rest of the front wing then, and we can see that Alfa have kept their very, very aggressive design that they introduced last year. Now, I remember when this was introduced, everyone was like, whoa, this is really, really aggressive. I think it's possibly the most aggressive front wing that is on the grid, and a lot of people thought, could this be one of these massive technical innovations that, you know, take Alfa to the front of the grid? Obviously, it didn't, but they've obviously kept it, and we are seeing more teams, even Mercedes decide to go for a lower top element front wing this year. Now, maybe not this low, but again, Alfa have carried that on. It's obviously working with their car. Again, I've explained this in previous videos, but I will explain it again. The whole point of this is to direct air around the outside of the tyre and basically create that outwash that the 2019 regulations almost tried to get rid of in a sense. Now, the end plates themselves, to me, seem a little bit basic, and I wouldn't be surprised if this changes as we get into the testing schedule and then into the first few races. You get a little bit of curvature, as we have seen a lot more this year. Again, that's just trying to push air around the outside face of the tyre, but there's no real cutouts like we have seen on, say, the Red Bull or the Mercedes, or I think even the Ferrari did it as well, and the McLaren had quite a good example of it as well. So, yeah, I can see this changing quite a lot. It looks almost like quite a standard part, which I think they can fairly easily, move about. So we'll see how that develops as we get through the testing program and into the first few races of the season. But overall, it's a fairly similar front wing, bar that nose cone, to last year. So moving slightly further back on the car, then, if we start by looking at the engine intakes on the side of the car, now it looks fairly similar to last year. I think this is possibly the biggest example of a evolution of a car rather than the revolution. Alfa haven't changed too many large bits. It's fairly similar to last year. I imagine a lot of the gains are coming in those really, really small details that we can't really see yet from the images that we have. I imagine that's kind of in the bargeboard area. There's no really good images, at least that I've seen so far, of those barge boards, and even the images we have at the moment are quite low quality, so I do apologise if the video doesn't look particularly great, but I will try my best to get those as high quality as I can. But yeah, quite large intakes, especially if you compare those to other teams. A lot of teams this year have gone for very, very small side pod intakes just to help with aerodynamic performance and flow over the rear of the car. Obviously, now the downside of having those small intakes is engine reliability and cooling down that engine is a lot harder. That doesn't look like it'll be an issue for Alfa, to be honest. Now, one thing that has changed, though, is if you look at the top airbox. Now, last year they had it was actually, I think, the only team to run it. A very much split airbox. There was a big piece of carbon going straight through the middle of it. Now they've switched to maybe a more traditional triangular one. And one thing that I have noticed actually is all of the Ferrari powered teams, so Alfa, Haas and Ferrari themselves, have gone with this at least triangular shaped airbox. Now Alfa have got these two extra intakes slightly behind that, but I do wonder if that's something to do with the Ferrari engine and the way it's been packaged into the car, and whether it's something to do with getting the most efficient cooling out of it. So quite interesting to see all the Ferrari powered teams going for a fairly similar design choice there. But it's a big step up from Alfa, who obviously had a slightly different design. Noting that not many of the other teams used it, I imagine it just wasn't really the best choice out there. So they've gone to something that's maybe a little bit more standard, a little bit more obvious in a sense. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see again. It's not really a part of the car that really changes over the course of a season. It's one of those kind of key components you can't really mess with, because obviously cooling is such an important integral part of the car. So I think this is the way it will basically stay, unless some massive B-spec car comes in at some point. But then again, I can't really see Alfa having the money for that. But hey, a big change there, and we'll see whether that does improve performance over the course of the season. So moving on to the rear of the car then, and the rear wing looks fairly similar from the images that I'm looking at last year, and I don't feel like much has changed. Maybe on the bottom of the end plate you've got a few more cutouts than you had before, but in general that rear wing, at least from the images that we're seeing at the moment, seems very, very standard. They've also got the T-wing on there, which again doesn't seem to have changed much from last year, though one thing I can note on is the shark fin has been reprofiled a fair bit actually. It looks actually a lot different to what the other teams have come up with, in that it's a lot more curved and a lot less sharp and jagged in a way, and fits in with the bodywork a lot more smoothly. Interesting to see how they'll include the numbers of the drivers in that. Now, for those that don't know, there has been a slight amendment to the rules this year, more on an aesthetic point of view rather than an aerodynamic one, but that's basically that the driver's number has to be really, really clear on this shark fin part of the car. So I'm going to be interested to see how they incorporate the number in that, big enough on that shark fin, or whether they decide to move things about or do a slightly different design that might still fit in with the regulations. We'll have to wait and see. I think it was Force India, go back a few years ago when they first brought that rule in, that got caught out and their numbers weren't big enough or something, and I think they had to pay a fine, or they had to get things changed in the next couple of races. So we'll see if Alfa have to amend their design for that regulation. I'm not too sure. It might just be that we need a little bit of extra carbon on the top of that shark fin, I guess, but. Or can you call it a shark fin anymore? It's hard to say. But, we'll see. It's slightly different from the cars that we've seen so far. And again, that's something that can change by the time we hit testing. One thing that I have actually just noticed, and I'm not too sure what... maybe it could be a extra cooling intake, or it might just be the way I'm looking at it. But if you look back at the airbox, just behind the camera mounting, which is that T-shaped big black bit that you see coming out of the top of the airbox, there's a little notch. It's like a little triangular notch. And I wonder if that might just be the perspective that we're looking at it, but I've not seen anything like that before in a Formula 1 car, so I wonder if that has any sort of aerodynamic gain. It might just be to an extra, well, what we might not be able to see from this side-on view is it might be just another air intake to help with cooling of that Ferrari engine, but that remains to be seen. But interesting there, I've just spotted that. But that's all that I can really comment on. Obviously, this livery, it is meant to hide quite a lot of things, and it's done a very, very good job at that. I am trying to have a look at the bargeboard section, but it's really quite hard to tell from these low quality renders. What I might do then is when the car is released on I believe it's the 19th it gets launched, so I might do another video seeing if we can analyse these parts in a little bit more detail. But still, it was good to see the Alfa Romeo cars today. We've got how many to go now? I think Renault, about 3 or 4 maybe videos to go. 5 actually, it might be 5. But yeah, we're nearing the halfway point of these car launches already. And obviously I will see you guys later for the AlphaTauri launch. We had a few images of that already, which I will probably bring in when I do that video later on today. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. And of course, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and of course subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this Alfa Romeo car and livery down in the comments below. And if you have spotted anything else that I might have missed, feel free to let me know down there and we'll have a little bit of a conversation about it. So yeah, hope you have a lovely rest of your day, guys, and I will see you in the next one.